So some of you might want to travel during your holidays. You go to a travel agent, you book a flight, you book some hotels, or you book some traveling through cars and so on. All those arrangements, all that information, the travel agent stores in a software, which is the information system for that travel agent. Similarly, another example of your local library, they also have their local information system that records all the information of the books, records the information of the users of the library, and some people, they borrow the books. This information is also recorded in library information system. So it basically provides you all the information about the books, its users, the books which have already been borrowed, the books which are supposed to be returned on some specific date, etc., etc. Similarly, insurance companies, they have their own information system. The video renting softwares, they are also the information system. Your internet companies, your university, your orders in university, which you are frequently using, our Blackboard, through which we are delivering our lecture. These all, they have their own information system where they record all the transactions, all the what is happening with respect to the users of those information, of those systems. Okay, now all these information system, they record their information. The question is, how do they record their information? Do they record it in MS Word? Do they record it in Microsoft Excel or some other software? That is the question. That is the thing that should come into our minds at this point, at this slide. We should think of how they are storing their information. For example, the library information system, how they are storing the information of their books, which software they are using. This is the important question that should come to our mind at this point. Are they storing all the information in an Excel sheet? Of course, their front end, it can be different, but how they are storing this in their information. Actually, to tell you at this point, they are not storing all this information in MS Word or Microsoft Excel, because these are the software which you are using in your daily life, but these software are not suitable for storing of this huge information. Which software they are using, we are going to study it next. Before we proceed further, there are some terminologies which we will be referring to very frequently, and those are information and data. So what is data and what is information? Then I tell you what is data and what is information. In your informal terms, you have been using it in different meanings, but for the sake of this course and technically, what is information and what is data, we are going to discuss now. In fact, whatever you can store in computer, all these things are called data. For example, you can store numbers. The numbers can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 20, 30, 35, 37, all the numbers, these are called, such numbers are called integers. And the numbers can also be in decimal. For example, 3.25, 1.75, 20.05. If there is decimal or the points, these numbers are called real numbers. Other things, you can store the text. For example, ABC or Alif Ba Pa Ta or other text letters. You can store date, you can store time, you can store images. You can store images can be in different types, for example, bitmaps, vector, MPEG, any other format. It can also be your voices, your sounds in any format. It can also be videos. All these things, when you store them in computer, these are called data. So your data can be numbers, text, dates, images, sounds, videos. These are the frequently used data types that you store in computers. Okay. Now, next is, what is computer? The computer is a device that processes your input data. Yani, you give data to computer, and then your computer processes that data and gives you some output. One example can be that you give computer that what is 12 plus 2, 12 plus 8, the computer adds it and gives you output that is 20. So your input is 12 plus 8, computer performs some operations. Which operation? That operation here is addition, and it gives you output which is 20. So computer converts your input to output through processing. Okay, usually your process data, we refer it to information. Or if you want to understand it in more generic terms, I would say, just imagine that we have a class of 20 students and they have their data. For example, their marks in midterm 1, midterm 2, and final. So marks of 20 students, midterm 1, midterm 2, and final. What do we understand from these marks? We understand that, okay, out of these 20 students, some students they have A grade, some students they have B grade, some students they have C grades. This understanding from data is called our information. What do we understand from data? So basically, when we are understanding data, we are processing data through our brain, through our mind. So this processing of data, or what do we get overall, our understanding, that is information. So for the sake of referring or writing, you can say the processed data is called information. Okay, the processed data is called information. Most of the time we are referring the raw facts, numbers, the text, raw facts which we have not yet processed, we are referring it to data. In most of the time you can change these things, information and data, interchangeably, but nevertheless, since we are going through database course, we must be very clear the difference between data and information. Other people, they use these two terminologies interchangeably. They say information as data, they say data as information, it's okay. But for the students of database, you should know that your raw facts is called data and your process data is called information. Hope it's clear to you guys. Okay, in history or at the start of the computer age, all the information or all the data that was stored in some application, for example, in text files, and then there was MS Office or similar other applications, and people were storing their data using these applications. For example, word processing applications, for example, a bit of data processing application that's like MS Excel and similar other applications. But the problem was that if you have data, for example, in MS Word, and you want to use that data in MS Excel, it was not that easy. Most of the time it was not possible. Even if it was possible that you want to use data in one application, which is available in one application, and you want to use it in some other application, that was very, very difficult. And initially it was not possible. Later on, even if it was possible, it was very difficult. Even now, think of that you are in Excel, how you use the data in MS Word, how you can use that data in MS Excel. What do? You usually copy paste. But we don't want to copy paste. We want to use, being in Excel, we want to use data in MS Word. How would you do that? Similarly, think that you have some data in MS Excel and you want to use that in MS Word without copy pasting. That's not that easy. Even now, if you are thinking, you will find it very hard. So what do we want to do? Our objective is that we store data at one place and we can use the same data in many other applications. This is our objective. But our traditional file-based systems, where we were using files like MS Word, MS Excel, and PowerPoint, and other file-based systems, we want to, in traditional file-based system, if we store data in one file, it was not possible, or it was very difficult. It has been very difficult to use the same data in other applications. In traditional file-based system, this is one major drawback that we cannot use, because each program, each software, like MS Word, MS Excel, PowerPoint, etc., etc., these software, they have their own data definition. They define data in their own way. Something in MS Word might not exactly mean the same thing in MS Excel. MS Excel has its own data types. If you know that you can define something as word, as text, the same thing you can define as number, you can define it as date, etc. These are the usually available data types in Excel. In MS Word, these do not mean the same thing. MS Word has its own data types, etc. This is one point that I'm explaining to you. So each program, it defines and manages its own data, and which is not understandable for other programs. For example, this picture shows you two different examples of traditional file-based system. Just think that there is one department in some organization, and that department is sales department. Sales manages its data, let's say in MS Excel or something like that, in some other software like that. It stores data, it has its own data forms, it has its own report through which they can see data, and they store their own files in one repository. This symbol is the cylinder symbol, and usually we use this symbol for storing data. This symbol refers to database. If you see any cylinder-like object, from now onwards you will consider that this is database. Right now, in this picture, it is referring to file-based processing, that we are storing the files at some location. Sometimes we use that for defining our hard drive as well. So this is the permanent storage media. Sales department has their own data entry forms, have their own reports, and they store that in their own storage. Another department, which is contract department, that makes the contracts. For example, you can say the contract for lending or borrowing houses, or it can be videos, it can be other contracts. Here in this example, it is for the property, that to make a contract for renting your property, or you are lending your property for others. Contract department, they have their own data entry points and reports, and they store their data into their own storage media. This is what happens in file-based system. Each department, it has its own repository, it has its own file-based system, they have their own files where they store their data. Okay, sometimes I have to click exit because of the PowerPoint does not take me to the next slide, so I have to exit and then I have to come back. Okay. What happens in database approach when we are not using file-based systems, rather we are using database. In database, what happens that we store all data at one place, and we use a software to manage our data. That software is called database management system. I will explain what do we mean by database, what do we mean by management system a little later, inshallah. This is coming. But see the difference that in our we store all data at one place instead of storing in separate files the whole data of all the departments. For example, see here, we had two departments, sales, they had their own storage of data. Contract, they have their own, they have their separate space, separate storage of files at a separate storage, maybe the same drive or different drive. But in our database approach, we store the whole data at one location, and we use a software to access that data. Of course, the data will be stored on some storage media, hard drive or some other media like that. To access that data, to change that data, to store that data, of course, we need a software. That software is DBMS. So each department, sales department or contract department, they use their data entry points or reports which access data through DBMS. Sales department accesses the data through DBMS. Contract department accesses the same data through database management system, DBMS. So our data is stored at one location and one software is used to access data. This is what happens in our database management systems. Okay, what are the database management systems which are available with us? What are these softwares? As I told you in our last class, the frequently used or very well-known database management systems, these include Oracle. Inshallah, we will be using Oracle for this course. And you know, this is one of the most powerful DBMS software, Oracle. Another one is MySQL. This is a separate software which you can use. Another one is SQL Server, MS Access, Postgres SQL. SQL in slang we call it SQL. SQL means SQL. Inshallah, in lab I will explain what do we mean by SQL and so on. Postgres SQL and many other database management systems. Some of these are free, available, you don't have to pay for them, while for others, you have to pay. For example, Postgres SQL is for free. You don't have to pay for it, you can install it and you can use it for free. However, your Oracle, it is very, very expensive. It is available. You have to pay for it, you can download it and you can use it. In our traditional file-based system, now we are talking about two systems. One, where the data is stored in files, in separate files. Second, database approach, where data is stored in database, not files. So we have two approaches, file-based system or file-based processing. Second, database processing. Traditionally, when there were no databases, people were using file-based systems, yani MS Word, MS Excel, PowerPoint, or other softwares to store their data into separate files. Just imagine when you have thousands of records, like in university, you have thousands of students or even more students, how you can store all the information regarding your students in one file. Of course, it will be very heavy file and it will be very difficult. Maybe sometimes the file is corrupt, we lose all data. Sometimes the file is deleted, again we lose all of data. Sometimes the file becomes very heavy and it takes a lot of time to open it, to close it, etc., etc. There are many problems which are associated in file-based systems. Some of those, inshallah, I'm going to discuss in coming slides. However, we know that we can understand that these are the problems with our file-based systems. Okay, as I told you before, that the file-based systems, they store their information or data into separate files, one for payment, one for employees, one for employees' choices, etc., etc. Let's see some of the drawbacks or some of the limitations of file-based system. If we store data into separate files, what can be some of the problems? First of all, your data is separated. Each department, they store their data separately. Just think one superstore like Hyper Panda, they have different department. One is sales department, one is purchase department, one is finance department. Let's take example of sales and purchase. One department purchases the items for Hyper Panda. Of course, they purchase it from the manufacturers. They purchase items and they store it. They bring it into the store. They keep the records of all the items which have been purchased and how much stock is available. And they refer it to the finance department, which decide the prices of those data. Then items are sold and the data must be entered for all the items which are sold, and the number of items which have been sold, those must be deducted, subtracted from the available stock. Okay, now you can understand you cannot keep the data of sales department separate from finance and that data separate from sales, because the same data has to be used by all these three departments. But if we are in file-based systems, each department will store their own data into separate files. Oh, we cannot work with separate files in such system. We have to store all the data at one location. But in file-based system, the data is separated. Data is isolated. This is one problem. Second problem is duplication of data. If we are storing data into separate files, then our data definitely will be duplicated. Same data will be entered twice or thrice or even more than that. Let me repeat the same example that I gave you in last lecture, that when I joined university or anybody joins university, that new candidate, it visits different departments. For example, it visits the department where it joins. Like I gave you my own example, I came to FCIT, then IS department, I went there, they took my initial data, for example, my name, my ID, for example, my phone number, my address, etc., etc. Then I went to administration department or human resource department, they took same data from me. Then I think maybe some other departments, etc., they took data from me. Okay, fine. If they are separating their data into separate files, what will happen? The same data, my name, my phone number, address is stored once in IS department. Second, the same data is stored at HR department. Same data is stored at administration department and maybe any other department. Same data is being stored for more than once. That's duplication of data. We are wasting our efforts, we are wasting our time, we are wasting our storage, because data must be taken once and stored at one location. Second, usually in your softwares, for example, which are not databases, on all other software, you may be entering the same data twice because you forgot that you have already entered that data. So by forgetting, you can enter the data twice, and later on, if you want to change that data, for example, just imagine that you entered my data twice, okay, and then I come to you that I have changed my phone number. Can you please update my number? So you will find my record and you will update my phone number. Okay, that's fine. You will say, okay, doctor, I have changed your phone number. Yes, you have changed my phone number at one location, but you had duplicate data. You had my record 2 times or 3 times. You changed it at one place. You didn't remember that you have it 2 or 3 times. So at one location, my phone number is different. At second location, my phone number is different. So now I have 2 phone numbers. One of them is correct, one of them is incorrect. So that's the problem with file-based system. The data, if it is duplicated and later on we want to update it, we want to change it, we want to delete it, then there will be definitely a problem, because we may not remember that data has been changed or data is there for more than one occurrence. Third limitation of file-based system is data dependency. Data dependency means that if you have some data in MS and you want to use that data in MS Excel or in MS PowerPoint, there is no way that data you can fetch data except copy pasting. You cannot fetch data from in one software into another software, or at least it is very difficult. It is not that easy. So all the time you have to open the other file, you have to copy it, and you have to paste it. Again, if you are copy pasting, it means data is being duplicated. So there is no way that we can use the same data, that it occurs once and we use it in other software. So we are software dependent. In data dependency, we have to depend upon the software in which we store data. If we store data in MS Excel, we have to go to MS Excel and we have to use the same software, MS Excel, to get that data. If we do not have MS Excel, you have a file in a machine where you don't have MS Excel. How can you get the data from that file? No way, or at least it is very difficult. Because if you don't have MS Excel, you cannot open the file. If you cannot open the file, you cannot have data. Okay. Another limitation of file-based system is incompatible file formats. Yani, it means that you have data in a format. Just think of that you have MS Word in the latest format, which is docx. But in another machine, you have old version of MS Office. Can you open your new version of MS Word in an old version? Sometimes it lets you do that, but in most of the cases it says incompatible. The file is incompatible. Sometimes there are major changes in the versions. New version has major changes. We cannot open the file of older versions. New version, most of the time they have support for the older version. This is good, but they provide this support for some years, maybe 1, 2, or 3, and then they say no more support for older version. But definitely, if you have a new version which has major changes, you cannot open that file into old version which are altogether changed. This you see many times in your browsers, that you have add-ons. When you install the new version of your browsers or other software, they say that your older versions or your older add-ons, they are not compatible. So your files based data, it becomes incompatible with other file formats. Next is another limitation of file-based approach, that if you want to get your data against some particular requirements, yani this is called query. Query means you are asking, you are requesting, you are making a request. Let's say that I have data of all university students, and I want to, in my data, there are tens of thousands of students. All right. I want to search for students who are registered in CPIS 240 in summer 2020. Now you see that I have my conditions, that students who are registered. First of all, the condition is registered. Number 2, I have course name, CPIS 240. Then I have a semester, summer 2020. I want to get these records. So I want to make a query, yani I want to make a request to my software that please show me all the students. How can I make these kind of queries or these kind of requests to file-based system? File-based system do not have any such interface where I can make request according to some conditions by giving some conditions. This is a limitation of file-based system. So I'm giving you some scenarios. Okay, I'm giving you some scenarios. Some other drawbacks are here. Uncontrolled duplication, that we in file-based system we cannot control duplication. We have already discussed it. Yeah, inconsistent data. Inconsistent data means that if our data is stored at more than one places, let's say two places, my record or your record is stored at two places in university. Initially, there is no problem. But after some time, of course, we need to change data, like our address is changed, like our phone number is changed, like every semester your courses are changed. Of course, we need to change the records after some time. When you have more than one instances of data, yani it occurs at more than one places, when we want to make change, we have to make changes at all the places. But usually people forget. It is normal, it is absolutely normal that they make changes at one place and they forget changes at other places. In that case, data will at one place will be different than data at another place. This is called inconsistency. At one place it says my phone number is Fulan, and at another place it says my phone number is different. If data is not same at two different places, this is called inconsistent data. Okay, next is another drawback is inflexibility. Our file-based systems, our file-based software, it is very difficult to find data. It is very difficult to change data. How do we do that? We usually find data by pressing Control F, and then we go at that place and then we change that data. Imagine that we have a big, every semester thousands of students, they change their courses. Of course, new semester they register new courses. Now 10,000 students, they have new requests that okay, these are our new courses that we want to register. How will we enter the records of tens of thousands of students in Excel? We need so many people who will be entering the records. Or if they want to make changes, usually there are hundreds of students who have change requests. How will we find their records in MS Excel or MS Word and change there manually? Very difficult. So these software are not flexible to change data, and if, for example, the versions are changed, then our data is not accessible in version sometimes. Okay. Another thing is limited data sharing. Let's say that I have my data and I want to share some of that data, not all. Some. I have my data in MS Word file or MS Excel file. I want to share some of that data with you, not all. There is no possibility that I can hide some data. I'm referring to the same file. Of course, I can copy some data into another file and share it with you. This is fine, but I'm not talking about that. If I copy paste it in another file, it means I'm duplicating data. But I want to keep my data into same file. How can I access it? How can I share it with you while hiding some of data? It's very difficult. Most of the time it's not possible. Okay. Another drawback of file-based system is poor enforcement of standards. Yani there are some standards that we want to follow for our data storage, for our security, for example. We want to apply some security measures, yani some passwords, or we want to change our data according to the standards. In applying the standards in the file-based system is very difficult. Next is poor programmer productivity. Yani the programmers, they want to access data. Think of that Hyperpanda or the Noob or other supermarkets, Carrefour, etc. They have data into files, and then they want to use that data through some software. They make a software in Java or PHP or any other language, and then they want to use that data. Now every time they have to open the file of MS Word or MS Excel in that program, very difficult. And also most of the times The languages, they do not provide support for, because not everybody is using MS Word or MS Excel. Many other people, they are using other file formats, other software. Not everybody is using the same software. So in all the languages, not all the support for all the softwares are available. Okay, and also if we are using these kind of softwares, file-based system, you know, after every 1 or 2 years they have new versions. New version means that you have to change your program to access data. Previously you are fetching data from old version of Excel. Now Excel has the new version and they have major changes. It means you have to change your program code that was getting data from MS Excel. Oh, again problem. So far you would have realized that if you use data, if you store data in file-based system, any file-based softwares, there are a lot of issues, a lot of drawbacks that you have to face if you are working with file-based methods. What is the solution? The solution of all these problems is that instead of using file-based system, use database approach. In database approach, you will avoid all these limitations that I have mentioned to you. Remember, these are not all the limitations. These are some of the limitations. There are many others. Since it's the start of the chapter, it's the start of the course, that's why I have not mentioned all of them here. Just to give you some idea, some of the limitations are mentioned here. There are many more. So we know the problems of file-based methods. So what is the solution? Solution is that we use database approach. In database approach, what happens? We store all data at one place. All data, for example, data of sales department, finance department, purchase department, human resources, etc., etc. All the data is stored at one location. Then we use one software, which is DBMS, to access that data. Then to access that data, of course, every department will have their own forms. Form is an interface through which you enter data. Usually when you join some institution, you fill a form. When you joined KU, you filled forms which took your data, your name, your ID, your address, your phone number, the place where you enter those data, those are called forms. So all the departments, sales department, purchase department, human resource, administration, they have their own forms and they have their own reports, which use the same database management system, and on the back end they are referring to the same data which is stored at one location and which is stored once. Okay, so in database approach, data is stored once. This is number one. Number two, we can follow the standards. Usually our database management systems like Oracle, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and all these software, they implement standards of data. Oh wow, that's great. So we don't have to implement standards by ourselves. They already implement their standards. Okay, and also these DBMS, database management systems, they provide you a query language that through which you can submit requests. You know, if you want to ask, for example, if you want to talk to Google, you know how Google works. Of course, you have to learn its language. By language, I mean how to talk to them. I do not mean Arabic or English or so, but how to make a request to Google. Yeah, we know that language through which we make request is called query language. Query means question, query means request. So how to make a request, how to ask a question, that is for every system, for every separate system, we have a separate query language. Okay, so our database management system, or DBMS, they provide us query language. They provide us functionalities to make reports, functionalities to make forms. They also provide us functionality for other programming languages. For example, we store data and into a database, and then we want to access that data using C++. Can we do that? Yes, we can do that. Okay, another programmer, he programs, he makes an application in Java. Can we access the same data through Java? Yes, Java provides access to connect to databases. Then another programmer, he uses another programming language. Can he use his language to connect to the same database? Answer is, if that language has a support, which most of the languages, they do have support to connect to databases. Wow, that's great. In contrast with this, can you access the data in separate files using different languages? Not all languages, they provide you support to get data from different file-based systems. Wow, that's great. That's great. Okay, so in database approach, once again, the summary is the data is stored at one location, one software, DBMS is used to access that data. Yani, what do we mean by access? First of all, we want to store data. Then we want to get that data from the storage. Okay, first is data storage. Second, data fetching or data access. Yani, we want to see data. Number three, we want to change data. After some time, we want to change data. And number four, all other operations. These all functionalities are provided by DBMS, Database Management Systems. Okay, some more things just to show you. This slide show you an example of property renting software which is used by a company. The name of the company is Dream Home. That this company, it rents the properties. For example, you want to rent a new flat. You go to Riyadh, you want to stay there for 2 years. So you want to search for a flat. You go to Dreamland, Dream Home, Dreamland or Dream Home. You go to this company and you ask them that, okay, I'm looking for a flat with 4 rooms and 2 bathrooms and etc. etc. So they will, of course, they have their own software in which they take your details, and then they are, for example, okay, they will ask you, can you tell us where are you staying right now? What is your name? They will ask your name, first name, last name. Can you see the mouse pointer on the screen, guys? Because I'm using mouse to referring to some of the pictures. Okay, you can see the mouse. That's great. Alhamdulillah. So they ask you for your first name, for your last name, for your telephone number, for your current location where you are staying. You will say that I'm staying at a hotel. So what do you want? You are looking for a flat or you are looking for a house? How much rent you want to pay? And are there some other requirements, etc., etc. And this is the information of the client or the front-end desk clerk who took your information. This is the name of the person who took your information. This is the date when you visited Dream Home. Okay, this is their branch number because they have many branches in different cities. So they take your details, they store it into their system, and then they will be contacting you to tell you, okay, your required flat or your required home is available. If something is already in their system which matches your requirements, they will inform you. This form shows you the information of the flat or the house that matches your requirement. Okay, this is the address of the flat. This is the name of the city. Here it's Glasgow. In your case, it will be Riyadh. This is the address of the flat, the number of rooms which are available, the rent which is asked by the owner, and etc. etc. Some other information. So these are the places where you can enter your data. That is called form, and the screenshot or the screen that shows available data, that is called view or that is called report. So this is a view or a report of the available property which is available for rent. That are your details. When you are entering the details, the screen is called the form. And when you see your details, again, that is called a view or a report. So when you have already entered data, you want to see it, which data is available, that will be a report or a view. When you are entering data, it will be called a form. All right. Data was entered like that in the form. When it will be stored in database, how would it look like? This is the screen. It shows you three different tables. This is table number 1, this is table number 2, this is table number 3. When the data is, okay, one very important thing to inform to you, and you should know that in databases, data is stored in the form of tables. In the front end, this is the front end. You are entering data here in the form. When you are storing data, you press save. That data will be taken from this form. It will be stored into the tables. Some data will go to table number 1, some data will go to table number 2, some data will go to table number 3. You can name the table. The name of first table is property for rent. Name of second table is client. Name of third table is private owner. So you know what are the tables. You know that in tables you have columns. The first column is property number, second column street, third is city, postcode, type, rooms, rent, owner number, staff number, branch number, all the details which are required by the company. Second table, its name is client. It has client number, first name, last name, telephone number, preferred type of the property. Someone is looking for a flat, someone is looking for a villa or house. Maximum rent, which one is ready to pay. It says the budget, no, I want a flat maximum in this price. Then another table which contains the information or the data for the private owner, the owner that owns the property which you are looking for. On the back end, in database, data is stored in the form of tables. So we have a database for dream home property. In dream home property database, there will be tables and data will be stored in the form of tables. Okay, that's great. Even in our MS Excel or even in MS Word, how are we storing data? Mostly we are storing data into tables. The same is the case in our database as well. Another example for making a contract of dream home property. Contract, for example, when you are looking for a flat or a house and that house is available, then the tenant and the property owner, yani house owner or the flat owner, and the tenant who wants to stay there, who wants to rent that property, they both make a contract. They sign a form where there are mentioned the details of both, the details of the property owner, the details of the property, and details of the tenant, and what is the rent they agreed upon, how the rent will be paid, either it is paid by check or it is paid by cash, what is the date, how long will be the contract, when the contract is starting, when the contract is ending, and what is the detail of the tenant and the property owner and the details of property. Then they both sign it. That is called contract. And since we are not working on the paper-based system, we are working in the computer-based system. So the front-end screen where all these details are mentioned, you know that the screen where we enter details, that screen is called form. Okay, these are the form for making the contract. This data of making the contract, we will press save. This data on the back end will again go to the tables. And these are the tables for contract department. They have a table of lease. They have a table for property for rent. And they have a table for client. See the previous forms. This was the form for the sales department. Okay, they have the tables for property for rent, client, and private owner. Okay, just remember the name: property for rent, client, private owner. See here, these are the tables for contract department: lease, property for rent, and client. These two tables, they are the same in your first sales department, same tables, and your contract department, same table, because organization is the same, Shirika is the same, dream home. So the tables must be the same. Data must be entered once, not twice. They both need a table for client and then they both need a table for property for rent. So they should enter their data into same tables. That's the beauty of our database approach. The data is stored once at one location. Okay, just a quick review. What do we mean by database? What is database and what is database management system? What is database? Before I tell you the definition of database, I would like to tell you what does this word database mean. As we discussed in our last class, base, this word, wherever you join it, it means the repository for storage. So database means repository for storage of data. You would have heard that the terminology, for example, airbase. Airbase means the repository for storage of aircrafts. Naval base. Naval base means the repository or storage for storing the naval vehicles, which are your ships, which are your boats, etc. Similarly, if I call chair base, it means the storage or repository for storing chairs. If I say car base, it means the repository or storage for storing cars. If I say database, it means repository or storage of data. If I say knowledge base, it means repository or storage for knowledge, etc., etc. So base means repository or storage. So a database is a repository or storage of data. You can also say that it is collection of data which is organized. Of course, we organize our data very properly because later on we have to access that data, we have to view that data, we have to use that data. So it is standardized, it is properly formatted, and we are designing to use it by multiple users. As I just showed you, the same tables of client, of property for rent, these were used in contract department as well as in sales department. And also other departments may use the same table, may use the same data. Of course, they are using the same data. So we are storing the data in a well-organized way, in a standardized way, so that it can be used by different users, different departments. Okay. So a database, how do we store data into databases? We make tables. Data is stored into tables. Okay. How do we make tables? How do we insert data into tables? How do we see data which is already inserted into tables? And all other operations. Later on, we want to make changes into data. How do we do that? We need a software that will help us to work with databases. That software name is Database Management System. So first of all, we make an application. To store its application data, we will make a database. In database, second step, we will make tables. Third step, we will insert data into tables. How do we create database? We use database management system to make database. The short for database management system is DBMS. We will say DBMS most of the time because it's easier to say it. How we create database? Of course, we use a DBMS to create a database. Inside the database, how do we create tables? Of course, DBMS helps us to create tables. Using DBMS, we create tables. How do we insert data into tables? Of course, through DBMS. Okay, so let me go back and show you once again. Data, it is in database. So in database, inside the database, it is into tables. All the access to database and table is provided through DBMS. This is the software through which we create database, through which we create tables, through which we insert data, through which we see data, through which we change data, etc., etc. All the operations on your databases and inside the databases tables, inside the tables data, all the operations are performed through DBMS. Without DBMS, we cannot create database, we cannot create tables, we cannot insert data, etc., etc. Okay, so what is then DBMS? It's a software through which we can create databases, we can store data, we can make requests to access our data, we can make our reports, and we can create our forms. So these are the major operations which are performed on databases or on data, and those are supported by DBMS. Let's concentrate on this terminology. Database, we know database is the collection of data or repository of data. Then is system. System means nizam. You know in Arabic, what do we mean by nizam? Again, here it refers to the software. Management. What do we mean by management? Management means creation. Creation of what? Creation of database. Then in management, what do we do? Second operation, first we create. Second, we make changes. Yani first, data insertion. Second, data manipulation. Third, data update. Fourth, we want to delete some data. 5, we want to delete all data. These are the major operations which are included in management. So management means creation, manipulation, updation, and deletion. These things will come, inshallah. We will see all these things. We will learn how to create a database, inshallah. We will learn how to create tables. We will learn how to insert tables, etc., etc. This is what all this course is about, inshallah. We will learn all these things. The major concepts we will cover, inshallah, in our class, and the practical concepts will be divided into both class plus, inshallah, labs. And after the course, inshallah, you will be able to make databases for all of your applications. In most of the application, almost all information system application, you are in information department and you will be doing your projects. In all of your projects, you will be making some software, and in most of those software, you will be storing data. To store your data, you will have to create database. So that course is basically linked to almost all of your projects of information system. This highlights the importance of this course. Okay, some more definition of database, some more definition of database management system. It's a software that enables user to define, number 1, number 2, create, number 3, maintain and control the access to database. As I said, DBMS allows you to define database, to create database, to maintain database, and to access database. That is what is meant by the term management. So DBMS, it's a catalog that provides the description of data. Yeah, catalog, you know, library, it's a list of all the books which are available in the library. That's called library catalog. So here it is also data catalog, and this will be explained to you, inshallah. In coming lecture will become more clear to you. So DBMS, it's an application program. It's a computer program that interacts with database. How do you interact with database? You have a proper language to work with it that is called structured query language. This will come later, SQL. It is almost the part of all DBMS. Almost it is part of all major DBMS, SQL, structured or standard query language. We will see, inshallah. So DBMS provides you a language through which you can make requests to DBMS. Just like you make requests to Google and Google performs your requests, DBMS also has a language to work with it. Okay. This picture tells you a simplified environment, shows you a simplified environment of your database system. So what happens? As I told you before, these slender symbol, it refers to your storage. And in our case, this storage refers to database. Okay, so we have our database, and for that database, this is our stored database, DB, that we created. Ignore this for the time being. There is a separate storage of whatever you have stored here. That is called your metadata. Let me give you one example of your library system. In library, you have your books in the racks. The rack is like a table. Okay, in table you have rows, you have columns. In your library you have racks. Racks is again like the same, you have rows, you have columns. So here your books are stored into the racks. Racks, first rack, second rack, third rack, fourth. I'm talking about library, physical library, not library system. I'm talking about physical library. In physical library you have racks and you have books in the racks. It's just like your tables and data into tables. And then you have a separate register or software in which it tells you which books are available in the library and where those are located. What is the rack number, what is the book number, and what is the location. That register which tells you the name of the books and their location, that is called metadata. Metadata means data about data. So data about books, a list of the books and their racks, and also the list of the users who are library users. Those are called metadata of library. Similarly, in your database, whatever data you store into the tables, its summary data, which is called metadata, is stored separately, but it is all stored into as a part of your DBMS storage. So DBMS stores your data plus data about your data, that is metadata. Okay, fine. Now we know that in our DBMS, two things are stored. One is our data and one is the summary of our data, which is metadata. This middle box, which is the gray box, it shows to your DBMS software, database management system software. In your DBMS, this is your application program, maybe any form, or maybe Java program, maybe C++ program, maybe a PHP website, maybe any other software. Through that software, you can request access to this data. Okay, then in database, there are two parts. Number one, the first part is the query part, SQL. SQL means standard query language through which you make a request. Then the DBMS takes your request and processes access to data. First of all, this is how you talk to DBMS. You make a request to DBMS. Then second part, DBMS understands your request, and based on your request, it accesses the data and then returns that data to your software. Okay. That was a simplified version. In simplified version, here are user program. Okay, let me just make a bit modification. Here are your user programs. Then here is the SQL part of here are your user program, your C++ program, Java or PHP or whatever, any other language. You write your programs here. You make a request. How do you make a request? Through query language. Query means request or question. You are asking for something or you are making the request. Okay. That will be your request. Maybe you want to see some data. Maybe you want to update some data. These are your requests. Okay. So you make a request here. Here the DBMS understands the request. Here the DBMS processes your request. And here is the data. This is how a simplified version of database, DBMS, it works. In last slides, here, this was an example of dream home property renting system. This was the tables of their sales department. Sales department, these are the tables. Second, again, the same example, but different department. Contract department, these are the forms of the contract department. Front end forms. On the back end, these are the tables which are created to store data of contract department. Now, I'm showing you example number 2. In example number 2, we are referring to a student information system. For example, in university, we create a database to store information of students. And you know the information is stored into tables. Tables are created into database. So these are some of the tables which store student information. This is the course table that stores the information of course name, course ID, how many credit hours, and which department it belongs to. These are the tables for the whole university. For example, the course name is database or database management system. The course ID is CPIS 240. It's a different here because it's taken from internet, so it's a different course number because it belongs to a different university. 3 credit hours, and the department name is CS. Second table that stores the information about all sections. For example, your section, I think it is KZ1, something like that. So section number, for example, your section ID is KZ1. Your course number is CPIS 240. Semester, your semester is summer. Year, your year is, right now it's 2020. Instructor name, my name is Farrukh. So this table stores the information of all the sections. Then the next table, it stores the information about your grades. Student ID, student number, the grade he got. And then another table that stores the prerequisite information of the courses. This is the course number and what are the prerequisites of this course. CPIS 240, it has a prerequisite, yeah, something is the prerequisite. So this slide shows you 4 different tables that contains student information. I'm not saying these are all the tables, of course there will be more, but just to give you another example, we saw one example of dream home property renting system, and we are now seeing an example of student information system. How the data for student information system will be stored into different tables. All the data, it cannot go into one table. We should create, and we have to create more than one table. How to decide and how to create table, it is coming next. Don't worry, don't worry. Everything we will start from the scratch. Right now I'm just showing to you how does this look like, what is the shape, okay, so that you can have some idea in your mind what is the database. In your data, actually you will not see the database, you will see the tables into the database. Database is just the collection of the tables. So this is a database. Inside the database there are tables, so you will see tables. Database physically you cannot see it, okay, it is just the reference to the collection of the tables.